The Industrial Revolution 4.0 has significantly reshaped the global commerce industry, and Malaysia as a global business hub is no exception. Over the past decade, Malaysia has experienced a remarkable surge in e-commerce activities. It is driven by increased internet and smartphone usage, varieties of shopping platforms, as well as supportive government policies. Platforms such as Shopee, Lazada, TikTok Shop, and Taobao have become a norm as those platforms offers consumers a convenient and efficient way to shop for goods and services. The COVID-19 pandemic further accelerated this shift, making more Malaysians to shop online as an alternative. This rapid growth of e-commerce practices has also introduced new challenges, especially in the area of consumer protection. Unlike conventional commercial practices, e-commerce transactions occur with a limited transparency and personal engagement. Consumers may face issues such as receiving counterfeit products, unclear pricing or return policies, misuse of personal data, or even being a victim to online scam. Furthermore, this issue can be worse considering the anonymity of the online sellers and the cross-border nature of the e-commerce platform. As Malaysia transitions into a digitally driven economy, there is an urgent need for a comprehensive and effective consumer protection framework. Existing laws such as the Consumer Protection Act 1999 and the Electronic E-commerce Act 2006 and the Personal Data Protection 2010 has been adapted to address some of the issues that arise regarding e-commerce. However, as the technology grows, the fields evolve. E-commerce need a legal reform and a stronger regulatory oversight by the authorities to ensure that consumers are being protected while sustaining the growth of Malaysia's digital economy. Consumer Protection Act is the primary legal framework. The CPA is the main legislation governing consumer rights in Malaysia and plays a central role in establishing protection mechanisms across the country. Second, it also addressing legal gaps. It fills the gaps left by other laws for offering broader safeguards to ensure comprehensive consumer protection. Next, inclusion of e-commerce. Initially, electronic trade transactions were excluded under Section 2 Clause 2G, but this changed with 2007 amendment to extend CPA protection to online transactions. Lastly, current legal coverage. Today, CPA applies to both online and offline supplies of goods and services, reinforcing its relevance in digital age. Primary legislation next is Electronic Commerce Act. Primary legislation for e-commerce, ECA 2006, enforced by Ministry of Domestic Trade, Cooperative and Consumerism, serves as the main law regulating electronic transactions in Malaysia. It gives a legal recognition to electronic communication in commercial dealings, supporting e-commerce growth. Next, based on international standard, the Act is modeled after 1996 unilateral model law of electronic commerce and applies strictly to commercial transactions. And the third one will be broad scope of commercial transaction. Commercial transactions are defined broadly to include not only contract but also communication relates to the supply of exchange of goods and services, agency, investments, banking and insurance activities. Lastly, under the electronic commerce also we can get a specific legal exclusion. The Act does not only apply to certain legal instruments such as powers of attorneys, wills, trusts, and negotiable instruments, which still require physical documents and handwritten signature for legal validity. The last main legislation we're going to discuss for today is Consumer Protection Electronic Trade and Transaction Regulation 2012. Firstly, the legal basis and scope of this regulation will be established under Section 105 of the Consumer Protection Act 1999 and effective from 1st July 2013, and this regulation applies to websites facilitating the market of goods and services by third parties and commonly known as online marketplaces. Second is responsibilities of operators and sellers. The regulation set out specific duties for online marketplace operators. Shopee and Lazada are such of that. An individual or businesses selling goods and services on their own site or within this platform. Lastly, a consumer data protection and compliance. Online marketplace operators must take reasonable measures to protect consumers' personal information and maintain a proper records with clear consequences for non-compliance.
This slide highlights the legal foundation protecting consumers in the e-commerce space. So the key concepts include transaction protection, data privacy, and enforceable contract. The main legislation include the Electronic Commerce Act 2006 and the Consumer Protection Act 1919, which ensure that secure and fair digital transaction. Lastly, these laws are important because they safeguard the consumer right, promoting ethical conduct and build trust in online platform. As for the online trader obligation, this is simply what about the online seller must do. The obligations are crucial because they protect consumer, ensure fair competition, and ultimately build trust in the digital marketplace. So the key among these is transparency, which is clear and honest information for buyers. Understanding the duties create a safer and more reliable online environment for everyone. Hi, my name is Valerie Abigail and my matrix number is 300798. So today we are quickly covering consumer rights in e-commerce. Online business in Malaysia must register, and our law like the ECA 2006 exists to build trust and to protect your online. So firstly, transparency. Traders must clearly state who they are, describe the product accurately, and show all price upfront. No warranty disclaimer because they are often illegal. The second one will be delivery. Seller must give estimated time deliver. Not delivering on the time can be a crime. The challenge is figure out who's the responsible for courier delay. If goods arrive faulty, you have the right to a refund or repair, and the trader is still accountable even they use a separate delivery company. The third one would be return and refund. Return policy must be clear. A no refund rule is usually unlawful, and you often get a 10 days cooling off period. While digital goods have fewer specific rules, platforms help with returns, though their legal responsibility for seller issue is often unclear. The fourth one is data security. The PDPA requires traders to protect data with strong security like encryption. They need your consent to collect data, and soon they will have to notify you an authority. If there's a data breach, always check for the privacy policy. Last one is enforcement challenges. Despite this right, enforcement challenges has been tough with the cross-border sales and unregistered seller. Consumers often face hurdles like low claim value or not knowing their right. There are also gaps in our law, so we need a better enforcement and more empowered consumer.
Alright, so now I'm Haziq and I will be explaining about the enforcement and dispute resolution regarding e-commerce in Malaysia. So for the first one, it's include the role of the authorities. So we got MCMC, the KPDN, and also the KKMM. So as for the MCMC, the commission was established under the Malaysian Communication and Multimedia Commission Act. It enforced the Communication and Multimedia Act 1998, which governs all aspects of electronic communications, broadcasting and multimedia services in Malaysia. So MCMC regulates online content and digital services providers, ensuring that they will operate within legal and ethical boundaries. It also promotes self-regulation within the industry, encouraging e-commerce platforms to adopt best practices such as secure payment system and user data protection. The Commission also monitors cybersecurity issues, spam and fraud related to online transactions. However, its role is more focused on technical and infrastructure regulation rather than direct consumer protection enforcement. So next we have KPDN, which is the Ministry of Domestic Trade and Consumer Affairs, also known as Kementerian Perdagangan Dalam Negeri and Kos Sari Hidup. It is the primary authority responsible for formulating and implementing consumer protection policies in Malaysia, and it also operates under the Consumer Protection Act, which plays a central role in the development and enforcement of legislation related to e-commerce, including the Consumer Protection Regulation. So the regulation requires online business to disclose accurate business information, transaction terms, and written policies. The ministry also enforces the Personal Data Protection Act in collaboration with other agencies to ensure consumers' personal data is protected during the online transaction. So it also provides avenues for consumers to file complaints and resolve disputes related to e-commerce, such as cases involving product misrepresentation, fraud, or delivery failure. It also carries out public awareness campaigns to educate consumers about their rights in the digital marketplace. And the last one, we have the KKMM, which is the Ministry of Communications, which play a broader policy and infrastructure role in Malaysia's digital economy. while its primary mandate is to oversee the ICT development, KKMM supports the regulatory ecosystem that underpins secure and inclusive e-commerce growth. It facilitates coordination among regulatory bodies such as MCMC and MDTCA, aligning national strategies to support digital transformation. It also leads initiatives to enhance digital connectivity, infrastructure, and also the innovation, which are essential for a thriving and trustworthy e-commerce environment. While KKMM does not directly enforce consumer protection laws, however, it contributes to the development of a regulatory environment that emphasizes safe digital participation and promote long-term consumer confidence in online commerce. So for other legal recourse includes Communication and Multimedia Act, as well as Sales of Goods Act, and also the Penal Code. So basically, under the Communication and Multimedia Act, it regulates the behavior of digital service providers for e-commerce. This includes ensuring platforms maintain fair usage policies, secure transaction, and truthful advertising. It also covers licensing, content standard, and oversight of internet service providers. While powerful from regulatory standpoint, the Act again does not provide direct legal recourse to individual consumers. Instead, it sets the boundaries within which service providers must operate and may lead to administrative penalties or license revocation when violation occurs. Next, we have the SOGA, which is Sales of Goods Act. This law protects buyers in online transactions involving tangible goods, particularly where there is a breach of implied terms, such as when an item is not fit for purpose, does not match its description, or fails to be delivered. So it allows buyer to seek refunds, replacement, or damages. And that said, the enforcement still require legal action through the courts, and many consumers may not be aware on how to invoke this right effectively. And the last one, we have the Penal Code, which is govern the criminal one. So the criminal offences such as cheating, criminal breach of trust, and also the cyber fraud, all of which can occur in the digital commerce environment. For example, a seller who takes money and never delivers the item may be charged under Section 420 of the Penal Code for cheating. Yeah. So regarding the dispute resolution mechanism for e-commerce consumers in Malaysia, dispute resolution mechanism for e-commerce are legislated in several legislative provision and international frameworks. The most significant statutory foundation is the Consumer Protection Act, which was amended in 2007 to extend its coverage to include online transaction, which is e-commerce. So this amendment was crucial to ensure that the consumer engaging in online transaction receive equal protection just like those transactions offline. So under the CPA, Consumer Protection Act, and the Consumer Protection Regulation, e-commerce sellers are required to disclose some business information such as their name, registration number, and contact details to promote accountability and transparency. However, the Act coverage is limited in scope and is often criticized for focusing more on recognizing online transactions rather than establishing enough remedies for e-commerce related disputes. So the CPA established one of the most accessible platforms for dispute resolution in Malaysia, which is the Tribunal for Consumer Claims Malaysia, TCCM. So the tribunal offers low-cost, informal, and speedy channel for consumers to claim compensation for goods and services, especially those purchased online. So e-consumers can file claims up to 50,000 ringgit without needing legal representation. The tribunal also operates across multiple locations in Malaysia to provide broader geographical access. However, its effectiveness is sometimes hampered by procedural requirements such as serving form to the seller, which will be an issue if the seller identity and address is unknown or if the seller is uncooperative. So beyond the tribunal, we also have the Malaysian Royal Police Initiative, which they have provided the e-commerce dispute resolution tools, which is the Semak Mula system. The system is established under the Commercial Crime Investigation Department, CCID, to enable the public to check their bank accounts or phone numbers against a database or reported scammers. So the system also aims to reduce fraud cases by warning potential victims before transaction occur. Besides that, the Ministry of Domestic Affairs and Consumer Affairs also offers multiple avenues to lodge complaint via hotline, website, WhatsApp, and a dedicated mobile app called Easy, Adu, KPD, and KK. Despite these tools, feedback suggests limited effectiveness of the apps and lack of user friendliness, which may hinder the usage. This according to the data by the Ministry of Domestic Trade and Consumer Affairs. However, there still remains a significant gap between public awareness, as many consumers are either unaware or they just don't know how to file the complaint. So next, regarding the challenges in e-commerce, which is we have two. But the first one, we have border issue, and the second one we have cybersecurity threats. For the border issue, one of the most pressing challenges in e-commerce is the issue of cross-border transaction. As Malaysia consumers increasingly purchase goods and services from foreign-based online platforms, jurisdictional complexities surely will arrive. Because many of these platforms are not physically located in Malaysia, thus it is difficult to apply domestic laws or to enforce consumer protection regulations. Next, for the cybersecurity threats, it is the cybersecurity is another significant concern in the Malaysian e-commerce landscape. Because of the online transaction rise, the consumers are increasingly required to provide sensitive information such as credit details, addresses, and also the identification numbers. This data, if not properly secured, can be intercepted or misused by cyber criminals. Incidents such as phishing scams, data breaches, and identity theft have become more common, undermining consumers' confidence and threatening the integrity of the legal marketplace. So although Malaysia has introduced laws like the Personal Data Protection Act to regulate the handling of personal information, enforcement remains a challenge, particularly against international or anonymous cyber attackers, because many online businesses, small medium enterprise SMEs, may not implement adequate cybersecurity measure due to limited technical expertise or budget. That's for the challenges in e-commerce, which is include border issues and also the cybersecurity threats. So for the conclusion, we would say that Malaysia e-commerce is growing fast, obviously, because it's driven by tech, infrastructure, and also consumer demand. But with growth come key challenges. So if we have those growth, we for sure will have significant challenges to be considered lah. So the first one is misleading acts. Next, we have data breaches, lack of transparency, and obviously weak cross-border protection, as I've explained earlier. So what Malaysia needs is a stronger cybersecurity and data protection measure. And then we need updated laws to protect online buyers like offline ones. And we need better enforcement agency and coordination. Also, international cooperation, for example, maybe within ASEAN standards and also in terms of legal recognition. Next, we need public-private collaboration with platforms and tech firms. This one to make sure that the protection is still within the context and the need that we have now. And lastly, we need digital literacy and public awareness to empower the consumers regarding the data breaches and also all things related to the e-commerce. Because the goal we need is a trusted, fair, and secure digital economy for all. So that's all from our group. Thank you.